Hey, and welcome to this Node.js Basics pre-class. So what we're going to learn is what is Node.js in this session and what are the benefits of using it and all, right? So the Node.js, as we all know that we have been using it for a long time, but we never got a chance to like look into it, what exactly it is, right? Node.js is basically you can think of it as a software like that runs on your system, something that can run JavaScript. It's a JavaScript engine. But technically, it consists of like many parts that helps to run the JavaScript itself. The If you have heard the name V8, you know that that's the engine that actually runs the JavaScript, that converts your JavaScript to bytecode, and bytecode gets run, right? So and Node.js is nothing but that can do all these things, but in the backend, right? So Node.js was firstly invented like around 2009 or 10, something like that, by Ryan Dahl, and he came up with the idea that what if you can run JavaScript in browser? What if you take the JavaScript from those browser and you put it in backend in your system? Right, that adds up lots of feature to the JavaScript that made JavaScript really popular, because of the obvious reason that JS is very simple to learn and it's widely known for developing web apps, right? Everyone uses sites, everyone has websites, but what if you could make not just front end but a back end with it as well? Because of that, you were able to create the entire full stack applications, front end, back end databases with JS alone, right? Your Mongo is queries are written in JavaScript, your front end is written in JavaScript, back end is written in Node.js, and your server is written in Express, which is again just JavaScript. Now, because of this, Node.js was able to achieve so many things because you don't have to learn new language here. What you are learning is just one language, and you're able to create multiple new softwares with it, right? So we're going to learn about that same Node.js today. You all have Node.js already installed. If you can run just Node, you should be able to land in something called as a REPL. Now we call it as a REPL because it stands for read, eval, print, loop. Okay, whenever you say node, just node, it should give you the version name as well. You should try to stick to the latest version, LTS, as much as possible. Now, this is nothing but a REPL. What you can do is you can type something in it and you should get the output back immediately. So this utility is doing the same job. It's going to read your input first, 1 plus 2. It's going to evaluate it, 3. Then it's going to print it. And then it's going to give one more chance, like repeat this again and again, read, eval, print again and again, right? Read, eval, print, the loop. So this is called, that's why it's called as a REPL. So you can use this to mock few, basic code, just to type it out and just to test few things. You can write any valid JS statement here, and it will work. So this REPL is it supports JavaScript fully. But now you see, you're not running this REPL in browser. Earlier, what you used to do is you used to open the inspect terminal in browser, and you could able to you used to type these things in the browser itself. Now this thing is running in the backend. Now this thing is running on your system, and because it is running on your system, just like a Git or any other utility like a VS Code, it has access to all the everything that your system provides, all the resources that your system has. Right? It knows about your file system. It knows what OS you're on. It knows about how to read a file, how to write a file. It knows which processor you have. It knows about RAM, hardware, camera, everything. And because of that, you can control all of these things just with Node.js in the backend. And that is nothing but a Node.js. So using JavaScript in the backend. Okay. Now to use the Node.js, there is a concept called as node modules. You all know not what node modules is, but the concept was introduced by Node.js itself, and that's why it's called as node modules. Whenever whenever Node.js came into an existence, there was no concept of libraries or dependencies, right? Because remember, in the browser we have script tag. If you want to include a script, you just write script tag in HTML document. You don't need to import or have install a library. You can just store that library in a website, and you can just write a script tag to import that library in your project. But Node.js is not a script tag, right? There is no HTML here. So Node.js needed a way to import libraries into your into your code here, right? And that's why they came up with the idea of package.json and node modules folder, right? So whenever you install a dependency, it gets stored onto your local project called as node modules. You have your package.json. Whenever you install a dependency, it gets added here as a dependency key or a dev dependency key. And then that library will be available to you in the node modules folder, right? And which is why the reason, whenever, even if you are building a React application, which is a front-end application, you can use that node modules, which is a backend dependency, right? So what node will be able to do is node will be able to import all those things. Like you are writing like this, import React from React, excuse me, import React from React. And what Node.js will do is it will take your React from node modules, it will put it here in this place, right? This is your, now it gets replaced with React, and this is, and below that, your source code, which is what this concept of bundling is. So now you have React and now you have Node.js, your source code. Now they work, right? With, even though the React was there in your local system. Now you can give this file to anyone and it will be able to see the same output, right? That is what dependency is. Now I'm going to show you like how you can, there are a few aspects of Node.js, like what you can do with Node.js that is not, that is, you cannot do in browser JavaScript, right? Or a browser, right? So basically first I'm going to show you like the most basic JavaScript, that is pure JavaScript, that is not related to JS. Now you have not one, two, you have A, B, just a function, the most basic function, return A plus B. You have the most basic function and you want to run it. So you know that this sentence is a valid JavaScript sentence. If I run this in a browser, if I copy paste and put it in a browser's REPL, I'll be able to see the output as 10. But you can do that same with Node.js as well, right? So if you run this code, you can see the output printed on the terminal where you are running the code actually. This is the power of Node.js. You can write all the JavaScript that is valid JavaScript. Node.js will be able to run that as it is, just like a browser. Then there is no limit to it. Every single JavaScript, you can write promises, you can write async await, you can write any single thing. As long as it's a valid JavaScript, Node.js will be able to run it. But apart from that, just because it's running on your system, it can do things like importing, reading, and writing a file. Now imagine you have a text file, right? Test.txt. Okay, it says hello Node.js. Now you want to read this file and write this file, but through code. Now, how do you do that? To first understand that, you need to first understand something called as CJS. It stands for Common JS. You can just call it Common JS. Like it's just Common JS like that. But it's mostly it is referred to as Common JS modules. Okay, the full form is Common JS, but you refer to it as like Common JS modules. So it is nothing but it's just a name. It is nothing but a dependency, nothing else, right? Now there is a counterpart of it. This you have seen called as EJS, which stands for. Let me take this on one line. Okay, you have seen EJS, which stands for ES6 modules. Now, ES6 modules is nothing but import export, right? You want to import a function, right? Import X from Y, import X from Y, or any other variations of it, like destructured or like aliased import or something like that. Any other variation, but now you see this is a keyword, like import. It's a keyword. It's not a function. It's like from is a keyword. You cannot make spelling. You cannot make spelling mistake like this here. It has to be in the same syntax. That means it's a language construct. Your language is expecting you to write this syntax. But when Node.js came into the existence, there was no such thing as import export, right? Because remember, there were only script tags. There was no concept of library or dependency. Whatever you used to do, you used to write just script tag for it, right? When Node.js came into the existence, they had no concept of import export. So what Node.js did is they they adapted to their own system called as CommonJS. And the way that you import anything here is, excuse me, you write this syntax: const x is equal to require y. Now you see, this and this are very, very similar. The only thing that is happening is this is not a JavaScript syntax. What require is a function. Internally, it's going to open this module and it's going to give it back. And what you're doing it, you're just storing it in a variable called as x. Here, that's not the case. This is a JavaScript syntax. It's a construct, right? Look carefully, you'll get the idea, right? It just import x from y. It's like part of language. This is not part of language. This is just a require a function. Someone has written require function, which internally is going to read the module that we provide, and it's going to go to the node modules folder. It's going to find this module. You can just replace it with any module name to give you the exact same, correct syntax. In ES6, in EJS. No, my bad. So this is not EJS. This is, I confuse. Ignore me. Sorry for that. This is ESM. It's not EJS, like CJS and EJS. Like I got confused. EJS is something different thing we're going to learn in Express. This is ESM, ES6 modules. Okay, my bad. It's not EJS. So yeah, to represent the same ESM syntax to CJS, you would write it like this: const react is equal to require react. Now what it's doing is, internally it's going to read this folder, it's going to open this file, and it's going to bring you the react, and it's going to store this into the variable called as react. Okay, so that's the main difference. To export, it's something like this. To export in ES modules, you would write export const x, something like that, or export x, right? To export in CJS, in CommonJS, you have to write like this: module dot exports with an x, exports with an x is equal to whatever you want to export. You can export just one expression, you can export like a value, you can export a function, you can export a class, you can export anything, right? Just remember to write s. Ignore the spelling mistake, but exports, yeah, this is export and this is exports with an s. So module dot export, well, whatever you're exporting, usually it's going to be an object like this. You'll be exporting an object so that you can import it as a destructured format like this, right? So module dot export AB, you'll be able to destructure it while requiring it. This will make more sense as the more you work with it. But overall, you need this concept of CJS in the Node.js. Now, because Node.js at the moment, it understands import export, but not out of the box. To make it work, you'll have to do some configuration changes on Node.js, which you don't want to do like at the time of learning. So I'm not going to do that at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with CJS, because that's the most commonly and most widely used import at the moment in Node.js. So to import anything, so our goal was to read this file. To import anything, what we have to do is we have to store something in it, right? So I'm just going to call it X for now, and then I'm going to write require. Now think of what module you want to require. Mostly it's the name of the folder. You'll get this either intuitively, or like you'll have to go to the nodejs.org and find how to read a file. Now, intuition, by what do I mean by intuition? It's like if you want to read a file, the module name is FS. FS stands for file system. If you want to do something related to operating system, the module name is OS. If you want to do something that is related to, let's say, network, HTTP, the module name is HTTP. If you want to do something that is related to streams, the module name is streams. So most of the times it will be intuitive. You don't have to even look for it. So what we need to do, we need to do something related to file system, right? We want to read a file, write a file, append a file, whatever. So you have to require FS. What this will do is it's going to import me FS file system. It's going to store it into the X. What can I do is I can just print X. And let's see what things that we are getting. X. And remember, all of these things is possible in Node REPL as well. So if I just show you the same thing here, const X Let me expand this. Require fs, right? So if I just print this, you see it's a big, huge object. From that, and this is the exact same output I'll get if I run this index.js. So if I stop it, to exit the terminal, press node REPL, press Control D, Control plus D. It should take you out of the terminal. So if I run this, I'm going to clear the terminal first. And if I run index.js now, I'll get the same output back. Okay. So that means you can run every single thing that you can run here. You can run on REPL as well. Every single, no exception. So you see now, all of these, the X is just an object, key value pairs, where every key is a function. All of these functions will follow, if you look closely, they will follow a strict syntax. There is an append file function and there is append file sync function. There's an access function and there is access sync function. Chown, it stands for owning a directory, and there's chown sync. So every function has its synchronous alternative. That means the function that you'll be using is going to be by default asynchronous. Now you know that why, because JavaScript is asynchronous in nature, right? We'll talk about it more in the live class itself, but just to show you the demo, I'm going to use the synchronous version first. But using synchronous version is really bad and you should avoid at all costs, no matter what program you're writing. Synchronous functions are going to block your event loop. Remember that. And until and unless the synchronous functions variant it has ran completely, until and unless this function is exited, event loop will not proceed to dispatch a next function. So never write a synchronous function. I'm showing you because they are simpler to understand for now. Okay, so what we are going to do is, now you know that X is just a list of all these functions. What we want to do is we want to read a file. Now let's look for a function that can read that, because it's going to be intuitive. Remember that. Now there it is. Read. There is going to be like, there is a read sync, there is a read dir syncs, there is open dir syncs, and there is an open. Now which one to use? And there is also read file, right? So you can technically use, of course, you know that read dir is not useful for us. You can use either open with some different syntax. Read sync, or read file sync are the most commonly used function to read a file or something. So what we can use is read file sync, the most simplest function to understand. So either I can just destructure read file sync here, or I can just write x.read file sync, whichever syntax you prefer. Generally, it is just import, destructured things that you actually need. Things that you don't need are not, of course, are not. But that does not mean like other functions are not there. Remember that this is going to import entire FS. This does not make your bundle smaller or something. This imports the entire FS, and what you're doing is just storing part of it on the left-hand side. Still, other functions exist in this file. Okay, remember that. So what we want to do is read file sync. And if you don't know at any point of time, you don't need to print it. If you just control space, you'll get the list of all the functions that are available on FS. Okay. And on the right hand side, you should be able to read their documentation as well. Now, remember, you are in the backend. You should have this habit of reading the docs as much as possible, because all these functions, you know that we just have this one module FS, and just one module has these many functions on it. Covering each and every function is almost impossible, and you'll not able to understand each one of them in one go anyway, right? So at any point of time you want to learn something new, let's say this mkdir. What does it do? It creates a new file folder. How do you know that? Just read the documentation. Mkdir, this folder, and some arguments to it, and so on. It's going to create a folder for you. What we want to do is we want to read file sync. So if I go to read file sync, we already have read file sync. Yeah. So it's going to show you the documentation of read file sync. You can expand it as well. So what does it say is, so what you can do is you can import the read file sync. You can just give the path that you want to read, right? And it's going to return the data to you. So which path we want to read? We want to read dot, stands for current directory, from current directory dot slash test dot txt. Okay. If I run this, see what happens. read file sync is not defined. That's my bad spelling mistake. Okay, it's printing something called as a buffer. So what happened? Because this buffer is just an array. If you can think of it as an array, but what is getting stored inside it? It's a numbers and hexadecimal numbers. These are hex numbers. Now, why is that? Because you know that test.txt is a text file. But remember, you can read technically any file. No one is stopping you from reading a PNG file here. And PNG file is not actually a text file. So what by default Node.js does is the read file sync function and many other functions with it. They assume that this file is going to be a binary file, right? And the reason for that is pretty straightforward because Node.js will never know that a text is a text file, right? How does it know that js.js is not a text file? How will it know that .jpg is not a text file, right? It cannot differentiate between those. So by default, it assumes that every file you're trying to read is going to be a binary file. So it reads them as binary, as an array of bytes. So binary is a buffer is nothing but array of bytes. Simple. Okay. So this is returning you an array of bytes. You can convert this to valid ASCII numbers and you'll get actually hello Node.js back, right? So what we want to do is we want to tell Node.js to not read it as a binary file, but read it as a text file. Now, if I provide the second argument to it, which is a configuration, it's going to change the way that read file sync reads this file, encoding UTF-8. You can remember this because you're going to use this like almost every day. If I run this, then I get hello Node.js. Okay. Now, similarly, if you can read a file, you can take a guess like how would you write a file? Of course, by intuition, you may guess the name of the function that's going to write a file synchronously is going to be a write file sync, right? If you don't know what it accepts, just hover on it. You'll get the documentation of it and write file sync. You can just write it. The TypeScript type definitions are available for each and every node module. So the first argument is the path file itself. But so if I give this /return.txt, and the second argument is the data itself. Data is hello return file. This will not work because Node.js will not know what encoding it needs to write in. Node.js cannot just assume that this is text and it's not binary data. So what you need to do is you need to give encoding UTF-8. If you do this, it's going to take this data. It knows that it's a characters, it's UTF-8, it's English. UTF-8 does not mean English, okay? UTF means like characters. It's a big topic, but I'll not talk about it right now. Just remember that writing like this, it will not assume that it's a binary data. It will know that it's a ASCII format, like it's characters and numbers and letters and symbols. So, and it's going to put it in the return.txt. If I run this code, on the left-hand side, there is a return.txt created, and you have hello return file. Okay, so this is the basics of reading and writing file but remember, it's just one module and has so many functions in it. You can technically do infinite things with it. The combination of these, all the modules can create so many things with it, and which you have witnessed it already, right? There are so many good projects written in Node.js. There are so many job opportunities in Node.js. You can do whatever you want to do with it because the language that you are using, you already know the language, and it knows the runtime that you're using, Node.js. It knows how to communicate with your OS, your HTTP, your stream. It has streams, and it knows everything, and it's super performant. It's really fast. The HTTP server, when you're going to learn, you'll see, and that's why it's real. Node.js has been really popular. Okay, so and that's exactly the same thing that we're going to learn in the live class. So that's it for the pre-class. Feel free to check out other modules, OS and HTTP, and try them. HTTP you don't need, but you can try definitely OS. Reading what OS can do is it can tell you about your CPU and all. So try getting your CPU information try getting your memory, see how many CPUs have and all. See if you can get that thing done. It's gonna be the 100. It's gonna be 100% the same way. Okay, so give it a try. Otherwise, we're gonna see that in the live class anyway. So yeah, thank you for joining. I'll see you guys next time.